A new book reports that you said he couldn't run a bath. Did you say that?
Well, I'm not, you know, there's a lot of things that were said in that book that I don't recognise, to be honest.
So
and
did you not say that?
And it's tittle tattle. So
they've cut the capital gains tax. They did that as part of the coalition government.
No, they raised the capital gains tax in the coalition government.
Well, what I'm saying, Andrew, and
what you're saying is wrong. They raised the capital gains tax in the coalition government.
Well, what I'm saying, Andrew, and
what you're saying is wrong. They raised the capital gains tax to 28%.
What I'm saying is that they've given tax cuts to absolutely the richest in the country at the same time where they've told the poorest people in this country over the past, it is true, at the same time that you've told the people in this country over the last 6 years, we've got to cut our coffee. No, let me finish this point.
Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner has once again found herself in the spotlight, this time over a cheeky remark about Prime Minister Keir Starmer. According to the new book Get In by Patrick Maguire and Gabriel Pogrund, Rayner is said to have texted a confidant that Starmer was incapable of running a bath. Ouch! When pressed on a claim, Rayner didn't outright deny it, instead brushing it off as nothing more than a bit of banter. Still, the comment has raised eyebrows across Westminster. What makes this even more curious is that Rayner has also been one of Starmer's most vocal supporters. She's previously called him his own worst critic and expressed complete confidence in his ability to deliver on Labour's promises.
It reports that you said he couldn't run a bath. Did you say that?
Well, I'm not, you know, there's a lot of things that were said in that book that I don't recognise, to be honest.
So did you not say that?
And it's tittle tattle, so I don't recognise what was said in that book.
But that's not tittle tattle. That's what the woman who's now the Deputy Prime Minister is reported to have said about the now Prime Minister.
Sure, and there was lots of other things that people have said about me or anyone else, and no, I don't recognise ever saying that to anybody. But we all have frustrations when we're at work sometimes, and I'm sure people have been frustrated with me at work.
Angela Rayner is back in the spotlight, and not for reasons she'd welcome. A new book claims she once joked that Keir Starmer couldn't run a bath, a sharp dig at the man now leading the country. The timing couldn't be more awkward. Just days before the story broke, Rayner was publicly praising Starmer, calling him his own worst critic, and voicing full confidence in his leadership. This contrast between a private quip and public loyalty has sparked fresh debate about Labour's top team. Are we seeing harmless banter, or a glimpse of deeper tensions that could threaten the party's ability to govern smoothly and deliver on its promises?
When politicians refuse to deny something, it means it's true. So, Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, has been quoted today contemptuously saying that the Prime Minister couldn't run a bath, that Keir Starmer couldn't run a bath.
Well, she's right.
Laura Kuenssberg put this to her.
So, what happens when Angela Rayner is confronted with her own words? Does she own up, apologize, or laugh it off? Not exactly. Instead of denying it outright, she brushed it aside as banter. In political terms, that's basically code for let's not dwell on this. But people aren't letting it slide. The fact she hasn't directly refuted the claim only makes it sound more believable, and that's the awkward part. Because one moment Rayner is on television praising Starmer as a strong, capable leader, and the next, we're told she once joked he couldn't even handle basic life skills. So what's really going on? Has her opinion of Starmer genuinely shifted? Or is she just saying what's politically convenient? That's the real question. And if the second most powerful person in the country once doubted the first, what does that say about Labour's leadership? Are they truly united? Or just papering over cracks? Rayner recently faced a grilling from veteran journalist Andrew Neil, and it didn't help her case. The interview was tense. Neil pressed her on inconsistencies in her statements, challenged Labour's housing targets, and questioned whether her numbers even added up, put together. The leaked remark and the shaky interview. Labour is left with some tough questions to answer. Questions that won't be brushed off quite so easily.
Tattle.
So you need to get your policies right. What would the capital gains tax be under a Labour government, and how much would that raise compared to now?
But I've told you, Andrew, what our priority is. It's about how we invest in our public services.
No, I'm asking you how you would raise the money. How much money would you recoup?
Those taxes.
Excuse me, it's important you ask the questions because you want people's votes. how much extra money would you raise by changing the current corporation tax and capital gains tax structures?
But Andrew, we've talked about be investing and putting the money in the primary care
Would you
services.
reverse the cuts on corporation tax?
I think that the cuts on corporation tax are missing the point because we need that money. We need
So
that money at the moment.
would you reverse
that.
it? Hold on.
Inheritance tax.
Would you reverse them?
I think that at the moment, cutting at a time where we need those services and people need those services is the wrong decision to
But
make.
I'm asking you, would you reverse the cut in corporation tax?
But I'm telling you, Andrew, that our priority is
You're not telling me the question.
I am. I'm
answer.
saying that the cuts in corporation tax, the cuts in inheritance tax, the cuts in capital gains tax.
But where was what's the cut in capital gains tax?
But what's really important, Andrew?
No, excuse me, I'm asking you a question. What's the cut in the capital gains tax?
They've cut the capital gains tax. They did that. They did that as part of the coalition government.
No, they raised the capital gains tax in the coalition government.
Well, what I'm saying, Andrew, and
what you're saying is wrong. They raised the capital gains tax to 28%.
What I'm saying is that they've given tax cuts to absolutely the richest in the country at the same time where they've told the poorest people in this country over the past. It is true. At the same time that you've told the people in this country over the last 6 years, we've got to cut our coffee. No, let me finish this point because you've interrupted me and I want to make this point. It's really serious to people in this country that you've told people we've got to live within our means. We've got to have this austerity. We've got to cut. You've cut. And do you know what? Debt's rising and the amount of money that's going into the economy, you know, you've not made it better.
Andrew Neil's criticism boiled down to one brutal point. Angela Rayner looked more interested in repeating rehearsed lines than actually grappling with the nuts and bolts of policy. In his view, that made her grasp of the issues look shallow. The moment that really stood out came when the conversation shifted to economic policy. Rayner looked flustered, struggling to deliver clear, concrete answers. For Neil, it was proof she might not fully understand the details of her own proposals. The fallout has sparked a wider debate. Just how well do political leaders really know the policies they champion? Critics call Rayner's performance a red flag, evidence of poor preparation, especially when faced with tough, detailed questioning. But her supporters see it differently. They argue these interviews are designed to trip politicians up, and that her passion and commitment to Labour's goals shouldn't be dismissed because of one bruising exchange.
And I'm not going to actually deny saying this. The smart thing for her to do, the obvious thing would be to say, no, I absolutely didn't say it. I'll tell you why she's not denying it, is because she fears she might have been recorded.
Yep.
So she did say it. She fears she might be recorded, and if she said, no, I didn't say it, somebody would say, well, you did. And that would be toast for her. So she did say that Keir Starmer couldn't run a bath, which is one of the very few accurate things Angela Rayner has ever said.
The interview has reignited a familiar debate in politics. What matters more, deep policy expertise or the ability to sell a compelling vision? Despite the scrutiny, Angela Rayner is standing firm on one of Labour's flagship promises, building 1.5 million homes by 2029. She admits the challenges are steep, but insists the target is achievable. Not everyone is convinced. Housing experts warn the numbers don't add up. Even with the private sector firing on all cylinders, projections suggest the government could still fall short by nearly 388,000 homes. The Center for Cities think tank says bold reforms will be essential, from adopting a European-style zoning system to rethinking long-standing restrictions on greenbelt land. And then there's the construction industry itself, facing a mountain to climb. A severe shortage of skilled workers threatens to stall progress. By 2028, the UK will need an extra 250,000 construction workers just to meet demand. That shortfall has triggered wider concerns about whether the country will have to lean heavily on foreign labor to make Labour's housing pledge a reality.
But you're doing this in a context where public money is short and the economy is stuttering. Now, housing associations don't always have the cash to sign up to new developments. Builders don't always want to build homes if there might not be buyers at the end. The growth forecasts for the government have been downgraded. And also the government's actually made it more expensive for first-time buyers. You've hiked stamp duty, costs have been going up for builders, they'll have to pay more for national insurance for their staff. I mean, it's like you're putting the brake on and the accelerator on at the same time.
The housing market at the moment, there is a considerable amount of problems with supply. So by making sure we're building the homes we desperately need and we're ramping up that supply, that will then help in the medium to long term. We've given the mortgage guarantee scheme so that we've got the pipeline of people that are able to come on and the affordability. We've pushed councils and local authorities to identify the land, have a local plan and build the houses we desperately need. We've helped the social landlords with the changes I've made to Right to Buy and keeping the receipts for that. The £500 million that the Chancellor announced already for the Affordable Homes Programme, all these measures, including the package around planning, there's no excuses to not build those homes that people desperately need. And we mean business on this because
the construction industry is facing tough headwinds. High building costs and weaker demand, driven largely by rising mortgage rates, are making private developers hesitant to commit to new projects. Many are holding on to undeveloped land, waiting to see if prices drop further. Analysts doubt the big builders will significantly ramp up output under these conditions. So, while Labour's ambition of delivering 1.5 million new homes is bold, the reality is far more complicated. Planning restrictions, workforce shortages, and volatile market conditions all threaten to derail progress. But behind the housing debate lies another challenge: Labour's own leadership dynamics. On the surface, Angela Rayner and Keir Starmer project unity. History, however, tells a different story. Back in 2021, after Labour's bruising defeat in the local elections, Starmer moved swiftly to reshuffle his team. Starting with Rayner, he stripped her of her roles as party chair and national campaign coordinator, a move widely seen as an attempt to shift blame. The backlash was immediate. Party veterans like John McDonnell accused Starmer of throwing his deputy under the bus, while Andy Burnham, seen as a potential future leader, openly criticized the decision. Rayner herself was reportedly furious and blindsided, confronting Starmer in a heated exchange. At one stage, she even weighed up a leadership challenge before ultimately accepting a reshuffled role. But old wounds rarely heal quickly. Fast forward to 2024, and reports emerged that Rayner had once privately quipped that Starmer couldn't run a bath. Whether meant as a joke or a genuine dig, it raised a larger question. Does she truly have confidence in his leadership? These tensions matter. If Labour's two most senior figures have a history of clashing, how smoothly can they work together in government? And if they're not fully aligned, how can they expect the public to trust them with the biggest decisions facing the country?
So, there are plenty of homes, she says, but we have a housing crisis. Plenty of houses, plenty of homes in this country, but we have a housing shortage. Which is it, Angela? You're going to have to make your mind up. Do we have a housing shortage, or do we have too many houses? That's what you said. You said we have plenty of houses, but we've got a housing shortage. Which is it? Don't you know? And don't you think, Russell, that she should get a better answer for Trevor Phillips's excellent point? Said if you crunch the numbers, 5 out of every 7 of these alleged new homes that the government's going to build will go to migrants.
Yeah.
She didn't have an answer for that.
So that she's completely painted into a corner here on the basis that, as we said earlier, Rachel Reeves' own budget said that we will see over 2 million migrants come into this country, net, so more, but obviously some will leave, before 2029. So
public trust in politicians is already fragile, and Labour's internal tensions aren't making things any easier. When Angela Rayner's alleged remark about Keir Starmer, saying he couldn't run a bath, surfaced, it only deepened the sense that even those closest to him harbored doubts about his leadership. Joke or not, the damage was done. Voters don't just hear the words, they see the cracks. If the deputy leader once questioned the prime minister's competence, why wouldn't the public do the same? That's a serious problem for Labour. The party wants to present itself as a strong, united alternative to the Conservatives. But that's a hard sell when the second most powerful figure has a very public history of clashing with the leader. And the stakes couldn't be higher. If Labour struggles to keep its own house in order, how can it hope to manage the country's biggest challenges? Housing, the economy, immigration? These aren't just political debates. At the heart of it all lies a single issue: trust.
Well, for me, it's common sense. We were elected for this because people can see it. Every one of your viewers today will know somebody in their family that actually desperately needs a council house or desperately wants to get on the housing ladder, or they're stuck in house that's not appropriate for them because they can't downsize because the homes are not available. So they know this has to happen, and therefore I'm determined to change things. We're the builders. We're not going to be the blockers.
Trust is everything in politics. The moment voters sense instability at the top, they start looking elsewhere. With a general election looming, Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner need to project unity or risk handing their opponents an easy win. Labour has built its brand around stability, competence, and change. Starmer as Prime Minister and Rayner as his deputy were meant to embody that promise. But the cracks keep showing. Rayner's past quip about Starmer, whether a throwaway joke or a genuine critique, still lingers in the background, and that's a problem. If even his own deputy once doubted his leadership, why should the public put their full trust in him? At the very moment Labour should be capitalizing on conservative weaknesses, doubts about unity at the very top threaten to undermine the party's entire message of change.
Keir has been completely open about wanting to do his best for this country, and I admire him for that. I've worked with Keir now for a number of years. Now, I am straight talking. Me and Keir don't always agree on everything. But the one thing I will say about him is he won't do what he thinks is popular. What he wants to do is deliver, because there's nobody worse critic to Keir than Keir. In my understanding of how he works and my personal experience with him is if he will be feeling harder if he doesn't meet the target that he sets himself to make people better off than anything any poll could tell him or any election result. He will want to drive to win for the people of this country and to deliver what he promised and set out that he was going to achieve.
So you say he's his own worst critic?
My question, what would Labour do?
Well, we've already talked about, some of the taxation decisions that the government have made around inheritance tax, capital gains tax, corporation tax, where you've given away money. This is what Jeremy was talking about in Prime Minister's question today. You've given away money that actually, quite frankly, we need to spend. And it's not just about an ageing population. That is phony. People know about the ageing population for some time. We've cut the criteria so people can't get community care. We treat our older people at the moment like dogs. It's a disgrace. We shouldn't do that.
Excuse me,
putting the money in the primary care
would you
services.
reverse the cuts on corporation tax?
I think that the cuts on corporation tax are missing a point because we need that money. We need that money at the moment.
Would you reverse it?
Hold on. Inheritance tax.
Would you reverse them?
I think that at the moment, cutting at a time where we need those services and people need those services is the wrong decision to make.
But I'm asking you, would you reverse the cut in corporation tax?
But I'm telling you, Andrew, that our priority is
you're not telling me the question.
I am. I'm
answer.
saying that the cuts in corporation tax, the cuts in inheritance tax, the cuts in capital gains tax.
But what's the cut in capital gains tax?
But what's really important, Andrew...
No, excuse me, I'm asking you a question. What's the cut in the capital gains tax?
They've cut the capital gains tax. They did that. They did that as part of the coalition government.
No, they raised the capital gains tax in the coalition government.
Well, what I'm saying, Andrew, and
what you're saying is wrong. They raised the capital gains tax to 28%.
What I'm saying is that they've given tax cuts to absolutely the richest in the country at the same time where they've told the poorest people in this country over the past... It is true. At the same time that you've told the people in this country over the last 6 years, we've got to cut our coffee... No, let me finish this point because you've interrupted me and I want to make this point. It's really serious to people in this country that you've told people we've got to live within our means. We've got to have this austerity. We've got to cut. You've cut. And do you know what? Debt's rising and the amount of money that's going into the economy, you've not made it better. Our economy is worse as a result of 6 years of austerity. And now you're saying all of a sudden we can spend money.
No, hold on.
And that's wrong because you're spending it.
You're just off now.
No, I'm
let
not
me bring you back to let me bring you back to the question. Look, you think there may be an election coming up, so you need to get your policies right. What would the capital gains tax be under a Labour government and how much would that raise compared to now?
But I've told you, Andrew, what our priority is. It's about how we invest in our public services.
No, I'm asking you how you would raise the money. How much money would you recoup?
Excuse
me, it's important you ask the questions because you want people's votes. How much extra money would you raise by changing the current corporation tax and capital gains tax structures.
But Andrew, we've talked about in absolute detail about the current tax system, and we said actually that the money that the decisions that the government have made and the decisions on where they're spending current money is completely inappropriate.
So how much would you save?
You've cut 50%. In my constituency, both of my councils have seen over 50% cuts to their budget. No. So all of the people that need support are in acute services now, crippling our NHS.
So you would be able to give them more money by changing the corporation tax and changing the capital gains tax to raise more money.
You don't cut taxes when you need that money to help. You should be investing.
You don't know, do you?
You should be investing
in those services.
No, Andrew, I'm talking about investment with the money we've currently got. At the moment, the government are not investing that money in our communities, in our areas where it's required. They're spending, they're cutting tax for those the richest, and they're spending money in the wrong places.
I'll give you, because I'm...
Labor's flagship pledge to build 1.5 million homes is already under intense scrutiny. Andrew Neil's grilling of Angela Rayner only sharpened the doubts. Her shaky grasp of the numbers left critics asking whether Labor really has a plan, or just big promises without a roadmap. But the questions don't stop at housing. Leadership is on the line too. The uneasy relationship between Keir Starmer and Rayner isn't just Westminster gossip. It highlights a deeper issue of trust at the very top. Their history of clashes suggests that the unity Labor projects may be more performance than reality. And that matters, because this isn't just political theater. It's about credibility. Can Labor deliver on its promises? Can Starmer and Rayner work as a genuine team? Or will those cracks in the leadership widen into fractures that derail the party's entire agenda?